When people talk about wealth and financial freedom, one number keeps coming up again and again: $100,000. At first, it might sound like just another milestone on a long financial journey, but according to legendary investor Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's longtime partner, it's far more significant than that. Munger famously said that the first 100,000 is the hardest, and you absolutely must push yourself to reach it by any legal means necessary. Because once you cross that line, something remarkable begins to happen. Your money starts working for you in ways that feel almost unfair compared to the effort it took at the beginning. Now, let's pause and really consider this. Imagine being told that the difference between staying financially stuck for most of your life and unlocking the potential to build real wealth comes down to just one goal: reaching that first 100,000. That's not an exaggeration. In today's video, we'll explore exactly why this number is so powerful, how wealth accelerates after you hit it, and the mindset shifts that can dramatically speed up your journey. Stick with me to the end, because I'll also share practical strategies you can apply right away to reach that target faster than you might think. Let's begin with one of the most important truths about money: capital scales. Here's what it really means: the more money you have working for you, the greater the rewards become. To make this clear, imagine you scrape together $100 and invest it, maybe in a stock or a simple index fund. If you earn a 10% return over a year, you've made $10. Now, $10 is $10, but let's be honest, you could earn that with just an hour or two of extra work. But now take the same exact scenario and change one thing. Instead of $100, you invest $100,000. Still the same 10% return, still the same amount of time, and still the same level of risk, but now your return is $10,000. Think about that. $10,000 earned passively, simply because your starting amount of capital was larger. That's the true power of scaling. It's the reason behind the old saying, "It takes money to make money," and this is where many people misunderstand the game. They think investing is about finding some secret stock or overnight trick to get rich. But the real secret is far less glamorous, and far more powerful. The magic lies in building a strong foundation of capital so your money can finally do the heavy lifting. Until you reach that point, your returns will always feel slow and insignificant. But once you cross that threshold, every percentage point matters in a way that can completely transform your financial reality. This brings us to the second reason the first 100,000 is so critical: the snowball effect. You've probably heard this analogy before. A small snowball starts rolling down a hill, and as it gathers more snow, it gets bigger and picks up speed. Wealth works in the same way. In the beginning, it feels slow and discouraging. You're saving and investing, but seeing little to no visible growth. But over time, as your balance grows, momentum kicks in, and your wealth begins to accelerate almost on its own. Let's break that down with an example. Suppose you save $10,000 a year and invest it at a modest 7% annual return. That's a conservative assumption. The market historically returns between 8% and 10%, but after taxes and fees, 7% is reasonable. At that rate, it would take about 7.8 years, nearly 8 years, to reach your first 100,000. That's a long time. But here's where things shift. Getting from 100,000 to 200,000? That only takes about 5 years. Why? Because your money is now helping you. It's not just your savings doing the work anymore. Your investments are generating returns that compound year after year. And it gets even better. Going from 200 to 300,000 takes just 3.7 years. From there to 400,000, about 3 years. And reaching 500,000? Only around 2.5 years. See the pattern? Every additional 100,000 takes less time, even though you're still saving the same amount annually. That's the snowball effect in action. Now zoom out. If you stayed on this path, you'd hit $1 million in about 30 years. But here's what's surprising. That first 100,000 took nearly 8 years, almost a quarter of the total journey. The next 900,000? Just about 22 years. Even more astonishing, after hitting that first million, earning the next 100,000 takes only around 15 months. Compare that to the 8 years you spent grinding for the first 100,000, and you'll understand exactly why Charlie Munger emphasized this so strongly. The hardest part of building wealth isn't after you have money, it's before you have any. That initial stage is where all the friction is. That's where discipline matters most. And this leads us to a harsh reality about the world we live in. We're surrounded by instant gratification. One-click purchases. Same-day shipping. Endless entertainment. Everything around us is engineered to reward impatience. And while that convenience has its benefits, it creates a massive trap when it comes to money. Too many people dismiss the importance of the early grind. They believe saving small amounts is pointless. They tell themselves life is too short to delay gratification. I see people with just a few thousand in savings spending recklessly because they feel financial freedom is out of reach anyway. So they spend as a form of rebellion, rage spending to cope with how expensive life feels. Now, don't get me wrong. Life should be enjoyed. You should spend money on things that bring real value and happiness. But here's the shift in thinking that can change everything. Before you hit that first 100,000, every dollar matters far more than it seems. Each dollar is like a push on your snowball. It helps you escape the slow, uphill climb of the early years. That's why personal finance experts warn against things like daily lattes or flashy car payments when you're still building your foundation. It's not because coffee or cars are inherently bad, it's because, in those early stages, that money could make a huge difference to your long-term trajectory. Think of your money like seeds. If you plant them, nurture them, and let them grow, you'll eventually build a forest. But if you keep eating the seeds, you'll never get the chance to benefit from compounding. That's the deeper message behind Munger's quote. It's not about depriving yourself, it's about valuing the future version of you who will have freedom, security, and options because you were disciplined enough to get the snowball rolling. And here's something else to consider. Once you understand compounding, you start to see just how expensive impulse decisions can be. Let's say you spend $300 more per month on a car payment than you really need to. That's $3,600 a year. Over 8 years, the time it might take to hit your first 100,000, that's nearly $30,000 you could have invested. And if you had invested it with a 7% return? By retirement age, that decision alone could cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. Suddenly, that nicer car doesn't feel like such a great deal. The truth is, the road to financial freedom isn't glamorous in the beginning. It's slow. It's tedious. And it demands patience that runs completely counter to our modern culture. But if you can embrace that reality, if you can push through the difficult early years, you'll set yourself up for a lifetime of exponential growth. That's why reaching that first 100,000 should be treated like a mission. Whether it means working extra hours, picking up a side hustle, cutting unnecessary expenses, or getting brutally honest about your financial habits, whatever it takes, within legal and ethical boundaries, it's worth it. Because once you cross that milestone, everything changes. Your money builds momentum, your returns accelerate, and the entire game shifts, from trying to save enough, to learning how to manage a growing snowball of wealth. And that's where wealth truly begins to build itself. Now, let's talk about something that might sting a little, and that's how many of us, especially younger generations, tend to handle our money. I'll be honest, a lot of the spending habits I see are downright reckless. It's not that people don't want to save, it's that saving feels slow, boring, and unexciting compared to the instant gratification of swiping a card or buying the latest gadget. But here's the harsh truth, every single dollar matters. My dad used to say, $1 million is just $1 million $1 bills stacked together. When I was younger, I thought that sounded silly. But now? It makes perfect sense. Because that's exactly how wealth is built, not in big leaps, but through consistent, deliberate steps. $1 becomes 100. 100 becomes 1,000. And before you know it, those small choices add up to something meaningful. And here's the kicker: your first $100,000 isn't going to come mostly from investments. That surprises a lot of people. Many imagine that if they just pick the right stock or get lucky with a hot investment, they'll skyrocket to six figures overnight. But in reality, that first $100,000 comes mainly from your own savings discipline. Let's run some numbers. Suppose you save $15,000 per year and invest it with a modest 4.5% annual return. After 6 years, you'd have just over $105,000. Not bad, right? But here's what most people overlook: 85% of that total came directly from your savings, and only 15% from investment growth. In other words, in those early years, you are doing the heavy lifting, not the market. Let's try another scenario. You save $11,000 a year and earn a 10% return on your investments. After 7 years, you'd cross the $100,000 mark. But even then, 67% of that total came from your own savings, not from compounding. The takeaway is crystal clear: in the beginning, your savings rate matters more than your investment returns. It may not be glamorous, but it's reality. So, if you want to hit that first $100,000 as quickly as possible, the smartest move is to focus less on finding the perfect investment, and more on increasing how much you save. Now, of course, knowing that and doing it are two very different things. So let's talk strategy, practical ways to speed up your journey to that first $100,000. I've got 3 powerful approaches for you. 2 of them are inspired by lessons from the classic financial book The Millionaire Next Door, which studied the habits of ordinary people who quietly became millionaires. These aren't flashy tricks, but they're time-tested and can truly shift your financial trajectory if you apply them consistently. The first strategy is boosting your offense. Think of it like sports: your offense is how much money you bring in. The more you score, the more control you have over the game. In financial terms, that means increasing your income. There are many ways to do this. Maybe you pursue additional certifications in your field that lead to promotions or higher-paying roles. Maybe you launch a side hustle, freelancing, offering digital services, or starting a small online business. Maybe you switch jobs if you're underpaid and find a company that values your skills. Or perhaps you invest time in building a high-income skill like coding, copywriting, or sales, skills that can significantly increase your earning potential over time. The point is simple: you can't cut your way to wealth, you have to earn your way there too. Offense is about building wealth aggressively and intentionally. But earning more is only half the battle. The second strategy is equally important: playing good defense. If offense is about how much you make, defense is about how much you keep, and this is where most people fall short. You've probably heard stories of celebrities who went broke despite earning millions. Because they had no defense. They spent recklessly, ignored budgets, and assumed the money would never stop flowing. Don't fall into that trap. In The Millionaire Next Door, researchers found that most self-made millionaires weren't high-income earners. They were ordinary people who lived below their means. They tracked their expenses, planned their spending, and made intentional decisions about what was truly worth paying for. Let me ask you something. Do you know how much you spent eating out last year? Most people don't. But I guarantee that number would surprise you. For many, it adds up to thousands of dollars that could have gone straight into savings. And here's the truth: most millionaires didn't love budgeting. They weren't obsessed with spreadsheets or frugality. But they understood that without control, wealth slips through your fingers. That's the essence of defense. And it's not just about avoiding obvious waste. Good defense is about making smart, strategic choices. Maybe that means driving a reliable used car instead of financing a flashy vehicle with a massive monthly payment. Maybe it means renting a modest place instead of stretching for a luxury apartment to impress others. Or maybe it's as simple as creating a budget and actually sticking to it. Defense means keeping more of what you earn so you can put it to work for your future. That leads us to the third strategy, maximizing the efficiency of the dollars you already have. This is about making sure your money works as hard as possible for you. One major factor here is taxes. If you live in a Western country, you already know how much of your paycheck gets eaten up before it even hits your account. In some cases, people lose nearly half their income to taxes. In the US, the top federal tax bracket is around 37%. That's a huge chunk. So what can you do? Use tax-advantaged accounts. For example, a Roth IRA allows your investments to grow tax-free. That means when you withdraw the money in retirement, you keep every cent. With a traditional IRA, your contributions reduce your taxable income today, lowering your current tax bill. And if you have access to a 401k, not only do you get tax benefits, but many employers will match a portion of your contributions, free money, added directly to your account. That's powerful. Simply by taking advantage of these tools, you're redirecting thousands of dollars from taxes into your future. Efficiency goes beyond taxes too. Think about where you're keeping your savings. If your money is sitting in a standard checking account earning 0.01% interest, you're losing ground every day to inflation. Instead, consider moving it to a high-yield savings account, which can earn 4 to 5% interest annually. That's a huge difference. It's the choice between letting your money sit idle, or letting it grow while staying safe and accessible. So here's the big picture. The first 100,000 is the hardest, but also the most important. Offense, earning more, gets you there faster. Defense, spending less, protects your progress. Efficiency, optimizing what you already have, maximizes your momentum. Put all three together, and you've got a system that accelerates your path to financial independence. Now, let me be clear, the goal isn't to live a life of constant sacrifice. It's not about never enjoying yourself or obsessing over every dollar forever. It's about being strategic in the beginning, when every dollar counts the most. Because once you cross that first 100,000, everything starts to shift. Momentum builds. Compounding kicks in. Your money starts pulling more weight. And for the first time, wealth begins to grow in the background, even when you're not working for it. But that moment will never arrive if you don't take the early years seriously. So, ask yourself, what changes can you make today? Can you increase your income through new skills, a side hustle, or a better job? Can you tighten your spending to stop dollars from leaking out unnoticed? Can you make your savings more efficient through tax shelters and smarter accounts? These questions might feel uncomfortable, but the answers will determine how quickly you hit that first 100,000, and how soon you can start letting compounding take the wheel. Because in the end, financial freedom isn't about luck or secret shortcuts. It's about discipline, patience, and smart, consistent choices, especially in the beginning. Once you understand that, the path forward becomes much clearer. Because that first 100,000? It's not just a number. It's the turning point where everything starts to change.